How many forgotten sci-fi films from the 80s slipped right past the spotlight? The decade overflowed with neon dreams, bold ideas, and cosmic imagination, yet some titles vanished almost instantly. Today we were uncovering the ones that disappeared into the shadows. Stay with me, because the deeper this list goes, the stranger the discoveries become, especially the one waiting at the very end. Number 15. Millennium, 1989. The bold idea at the center of Millennium sounds like something pulled straight from a late-night conspiracy forum. It begins with a mysterious team appearing at the scene of doomed airplanes moments before disaster. Their mission is not villainy, but collection. They quietly remove passengers who are moments away from tragedy and replace them with artificial doubles, so history stays unchanged. That setup alone gives the movie its strange, uneasy energy. Millennium follows Louise, a time traveler from a distant future where the human population has dramatically declined. The people who remain suffer from environmental damage and declining health. For them, collecting healthy individuals from the past is their only hope of survival. Meanwhile, Bill, a present-day investigator, notices odd clues at crash sites that make no sense. Metal that looks melted without heat, discrepancies in passenger remains, and impossible timestamps. His slow uncovering of the larger picture becomes one of the more engaging parts of the story. The movie mixes mystery, romance, and speculative sci-fi without ever going the big action route. Instead, it leans into atmosphere, blue-tinted hallways, shadowy labs, and a future that feels more like a warning than a fantasy. Millennium never found its audience when it released, overshadowed by louder sci-fi films of its time. But for viewers willing to explore quieter, stranger science fiction, it becomes a small hidden gem that leaves you thinking long after the credits roll. Number 14. The Last Starfighter, 1984. Imagine playing an arcade machine outside your small-town trailer park and discovering it's actually a secret recruitment test from outer space. The Last Starfighter runs with that idea and never looks back. Alex, a teenager who feels stuck in a life going nowhere, beats the high score on a strange game, only to find out it wasn't a game at all. It was a challenge created by an alien defense force searching for gifted star pilots. Suddenly, Alex is whisked away to join a distant galactic battle, piloting advanced ships and learning alien combat strategies. The movie's design work feels charmingly retro now, but during the 1980s it pushed early computer-generated imagery further than most films dared to. Entire space sequences were built from digital effects that were groundbreaking for the time. Despite its imaginative world, The Last Starfighter never became a mainstream giant. Many viewers forgot about it as other sci-fi franchises dominated the era, but revisiting the film shows just how much heart it carries. Alex's journey isn't just about starfighters or alien wars. It is about wanting to break out of a quiet life and discovering that the universe might hold something bigger for you. Stories of reluctant heroes are common, but this one builds its identity around the thrill of being chosen for something extraordinary. For many sci-fi fans, The Last Starfighter is the movie that quietly sparked their love for space adventures without ever asking for the spotlight. Number 13. The Brother from Another Planet, 1984. The Brother from Another Planet is one of the most unusual sci-fi films from the decade. It starts with a silent, barefoot alien crash landing in New York. He looks human, but he communicates through expressions alone. What follows is part science fiction, part social observation, and part character study of a stranger trying to blend into a world that doesn't understand him. The alien, played with remarkable calmness, wanders through Harlem, observing everything. Street musicians, commuters, local shopkeepers, and small everyday dramas. His silence gives the film a unique energy. Instead of laser battles or cosmic threats, the story focuses on how he reacts to normal human behavior. Every moment feels slightly offbeat, but strangely sincere. Two mysterious figures eventually arrive to track him down, adding a subtle chase element. Yet, even that conflict remains quiet. The film resists big set pieces and instead asks what would happen if someone from another world tried to understand ours without speaking a single word. Themes of belonging, identity, and empathy appear throughout, but never in a heavy way. The Brother from Another Planet didn't become a household name because it doesn't behave like a typical sci-fi film. It moves slowly, observes patiently, and gives its audience time to think instead of blasting them with spectacle. For viewers looking for gentle, thoughtful science fiction, this movie remains a forgotten treasure worth rediscovering. Number 12. Strange Invaders, 1983. Strange Invaders feels like someone took a 1950s sci-fi magazine cover and turned it into a feature film. It follows Charles, a professor whose ex-wife disappears after visiting her old hometown. When he goes looking for her, he finds a place frozen in time. The people dress the same, talk the same, and behave like they stepped straight out of mid-century America. There is an eerie quietness that makes every scene feel slightly wrong. The truth is stranger than he expects. The town has been taken over by aliens who perfectly mimic human appearance. Their goal isn't invasion in the dramatic sense, but a long-term observational mission. When Charles begins to uncover their secret, he becomes a target. The special effects, particularly the transformation scenes, look delightfully retro now. Lightning flashes, glowing eyes, and swirling energy bursts give the movie its personality. The film blends mystery, science fiction, and a bit of gentle humor. Its pacing feels smoother than many low-budget projects of the era, and the world-building captures that eerie small-town atmosphere, where everything looks normal, but nothing feels normal. Strange Invaders didn't make a big splash at the time, because it stood between genres, too sci-fi for mystery fans, too gentle for horror fans, and too odd to fit mainstream expectations. Yet today, its charm comes from exactly those unusual choices. It is a movie that feels like stepping into another era entirely, one where nostalgia and extraterrestrial secrets mix to create a quietly memorable experience. Number 11. Outland, 1981. Outland begins in one of the harshest settings imaginable, a mining colony on Jupiter's moon, Io. The story follows Marshall O'Neill, a law officer assigned to a place where rules barely matter and everyone works under extreme pressure. Life in the colony feels industrial and grim. Everything is metal corridors, cramped bunks, and an atmosphere where nobody stays for long unless they have to. When O'Neill realizes something is deeply wrong at the mine, he starts investigating unusual worker incidents, people behaving unpredictably, accidents that don't add up, and a management team that seems too eager to look the other way. His search for answers slowly isolates him from everyone around him. The tension builds not through big battles, but through the feeling that O'Neill is completely alone against a system that wants silence. The movie stands out for its world building. The colony feels lived in, grounded, and practical. Outland doesn't rely on flashy effects. Instead, it creates immersion through atmosphere, slow burn mystery, and a protagonist who refuses to walk away from the truth even when it puts him at risk. Though it never achieved the fame of other sci-fi films from the early 80s, Outland carved out its own space as a gritty, realistic look at life in remote colonies far from Earth. For viewers who enjoy science fiction rooted in tension and isolation rather than spectacle, this film remains a powerful and often forgotten number from the decade. Number 10, The Hidden, 1987. The Hidden starts fast and never slows down. A quiet day in Los Angeles suddenly erupts when an ordinary man commits a string of reckless crimes with no explanation. When he is finally stopped, the story takes a stranger turn. Something leaves his body and enters another. From there, the chase becomes less about catching a criminal and more about identifying what's jumping from host to host. The film pairs an FBI agent with a local detective, and their chemistry is part of what makes everything work. The investigators notice that the people involved show the same strange behavior: sudden bursts of adrenaline, unusual strength, and a complete disregard for danger. The more they dig, the clearer it becomes that they are not hunting a person at all. They are tracking something that slips in and out of bodies like borrowed clothing. What makes The Hidden memorable is its blend of action, mystery, and sci-fi weirdness without relying on heavy effects. Instead, everything is driven by energy. Car chases that feel frantic, moments of dark humor, and a surprising emotional payoff. The alien entity's motives reveal themselves slowly, giving the story more depth than expected from a film that looks like a standard chase narrative. Although it never hit blockbuster levels, The Hidden earned a loyal following because it delivered a thrilling, unpredictable ride. Today it stands as one of the most overlooked sci-fi gems of the late 80s, packed with clever ideas and rapid-fire storytelling that never lets you relax. Number 9, Starman, 1984. Starman begins with a quiet moment that quickly shifts into a remarkable journey. An alien visitor recreates the appearance of a woman's late husband after discovering a lock of his hair. This leads to a strange meeting. She walks into her living room and sees someone who looks exactly like the person she lost. The confusion, fear, and slow understanding that follows give the film its emotional core. The visitor learns about humans by watching and mimicking, which creates many gentle, humorous moments. But he also carries a mission. He needs to travel to a specific location before a deadline or lose his chance to return home. Along the way, the woman who once feared him becomes his partner, guiding him across the country, while avoiding those who want to capture him first. What makes Starman so powerful is its softness. Instead of explosions or large-scale battles, the story focuses on connection. The visitor experiences kindness, curiosity, and trust for the first time, while the woman begins healing from grief through an unexpected friendship. Their journey becomes a road trip filled with wonder and small discoveries. The movie was overshadowed by louder sci-fi releases, but critics praised its warmth and quiet beauty. It was also rare for the decade, a sci-fi story built on emotion rather than spectacle. Today, Starman remains a gentle, forgotten classic that proves sci-fi doesn't always need a giant budget to leave a lasting impression. Number 8. Trancers, 1984. Trancers is one of those movies that feels like a late-night discovery you weren't expecting. It follows Jack Death, a hardened detective from a distant future trying to stop a dangerous mastermind who can control the minds of certain people. These controlled individuals are known as Trancers, and they blend in among ordinary citizens until activated. The twist comes when Jack is sent back in time. But since full-body travel isn't possible, his consciousness is placed into the body of an ancestor living in 1980s Los Angeles. Suddenly, the tough future cop finds himself in a world of neon, lights, roller rinks, and holiday decorations, trying to solve a futuristic problem using very non-futuristic tools. Jack teams up with a young woman who reluctantly becomes his partner. Their dynamic adds charm and humor to the story as Jack stumbles through everyday tasks that confuse him. At the same time, the threat remains real. Trancers can appear anywhere, so any person he encounters could suddenly turn dangerous without warning. The film's charm comes from its low-budget creativity. Clever ideas replace expensive effects, giving the story a scrappy, energetic personality. Trancers never became a mainstream hit, but it grew into a cult favorite that spawned multiple follow-ups. It's a reminder that passion and imagination can create memorable sci-fi, even without large studio backing. Number 7. Repo Man, 1984. Repo Man opens with a glowing trunk in a car that no one should open and a trail of strange events that follow everyone who goes near it. That setup alone tells you the movie is not interested in being ordinary. Otto, a drifting young man who recently took a job reclaiming cars, gets dragged into a world of odd characters, confused scientists, and government agents who all want that same mysterious vehicle. The film is a chaotic mix of punk energy, dry humor, and science fiction that never fully explains itself. And that is the point. It embraces weirdness, letting viewers piece together the story, one odd moment at a time. Neon-lit streets, quirky dialogue, and sudden bursts of absurdity keep the tone unpredictable. Otto's journey becomes less about reclaiming cars and more about understanding how he ended up in the middle of a growing mystery. The glowing trunk becomes the symbol of everything strange in the movie. Characters whisper about it, chase it, fear it, and try to claim it, even though they have no idea what it actually contains. Otto's reactions mirror the audience. He's confused, curious, annoyed, and strangely drawn to it. Repo Man didn't win big awards or dominate theaters, but it grabbed the attention of viewers who appreciated unusual storytelling. Over time, it became a cult classic, remembered for being bold enough to embrace its eccentric personality. Few sci-fi films from the decade feel this wild, unpredictable, or refreshingly odd. Number 6. Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone, 1983. Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone feels like pure 80s sci-fi distilled into one film. It begins with a starship accident that leaves a group of passengers stranded on a harsh, distant world. When a reward is offered for their rescue, a rugged adventurer named Wolf decides to take the job. The promise of payment sends him on a journey across deserts, toxic landscapes, and ruined structures filled with odd dangers. Along the way, he meets a spirited young girl who becomes his guide. Their banter gives the story energy while they navigate everything the Forbidden Zone throws at them: scrap-built vehicles, unusual creatures, and a community of survivors struggling against a powerful leader known as Overdog. The name may sound unusual, but the character S design is pure 80s imagination with mechanical limbs and an intimidating presence. The movie arrived during a wave of sci-fi adventure films, which meant bigger titles overshadowed it, but its practical effects, colorful world, and sense of fun give it a unique place in the genre. It even features a young actress who would later become famous in teen classics, making the film a surprising early chapter in her career. Space Hunter didn't become a blockbuster, but it stands out as a bold, adventurous ride that mixes action, humor, and world building. For viewers who enjoy retro sci-fi landscapes and spirited storytelling, this forgotten gem delivers exactly what its title promises: a wild trip into the unknown. Number 5, Lifeforce, 1985. Lifeforce begins with a discovery that feels more like the start of a dream than a sci-fi adventure. A team of astronauts finds an enormous vessel hidden inside Halley's comet. Inside are 3 perfectly preserved beings who look almost human. They bring them back to Earth, unaware that this is the moment everything shifts from curiosity to full-on chaos. Once awakened, the visitors drain energy from anyone who gets close, leaving strange, unsettling consequences behind. The film blends space exploration with eerie, haunting imagery. Research labs turn into places of panic, scientists scramble for answers, and strange energy pulses give every scene a sense of pressure. The story moves fast. One moment you're watching investigators examine an unusual discovery, and the next, you're re-thrown into a race to contain something that spreads far too quickly. The city feels alive with tension as the effects grow wider. People behave unpredictably, lights flicker, alarms sound everywhere, and the investigators try to understand what they accidentally unleashed. The scale becomes surprisingly large, turning the film from a quiet sci-fi mystery into a sprawling crisis. Lifeforce never became a major hit, partly because it didn't fit cleanly into one category. It wasn't just sci-fi. It wasn't just suspense. It sat somewhere in the middle, bold and strange, filled with ideas that felt ahead of their time. But for those who enjoy movies that mix cosmic discovery with eerie mystery, Lifeforce stands out as one of the decade's most unusual and unforgettable sci-fi experiences. Number 4, Saturn III, 1980. Saturn III is the kind of forgotten 80s sci-fi film that feels like it belongs in a different dimension. Set on a remote base near Saturn, the story follows 2 scientists living in the total isolation as they work on food research for a crowded future Earth. Their quiet routine shifts when a new arrival, Benson, lands on the station with a towering experimental robot designed to take over their work. From the moment Benson appears, the base no longer feels safe. His behavior is strange, tense, and unpredictable. He programs the robot, named Hector, with questionable intentions. The machine begins learning at an alarming rate, copying Benson's worst traits and growing more independent with every passing moment. What begins as a simple assignment becomes a slow, claustrophobic struggle. As the robot develops its own ideas about control, the movie stands out for its practical sets and eerie atmosphere. Metallic corridors, dim lighting, and the vast emptiness of space press down on every scene. Even with a small cast, the tension builds steadily, driven by the fear of being trapped with a machine that learns too quickly. Saturn III didn't win over audiences during its release, but today it stands as a strange, overlooked sci-fi experiment that delivers tension in its own quiet, unsettling way. Number 3, The Quiet Earth, 1985. The Quiet Earth begins with one of the most powerful openings in 80s sci-fi. A scientist named Zach wakes up in his apartment to discover something impossible. The streets are empty. Buildings stand untouched. Cars sit abandoned as if everyone simply vanished at the exact same moment. The silence is enormous. No voices, no movement, no answers. Just Zach, and an entire world missing its people. At first he wanders in disbelief, trying to make sense of what happened. Was it an experiment gone wrong? A cosmic event? A global crisis he somehow survived? The movie doesn't rush the explanation. Instead, it lets viewers experience the eerie beauty of deserted cities through Zach's eyes. He explores supermarkets, drives through empty highways, and tries to understand why he's the only person left. But eventually, he learns he's not alone. New characters arrive, and the mystery deepens. Their experiences don't match his, suggesting that something larger and stranger is at play. The film raises questions without spoon-feeding answers, letting the audience think through the puzzle. The Quiet Earth stands out because it balances science fiction with emotional storytelling. It shows how isolation affects the mind and how hope can return even when the world feels lost. Quiet, haunting, and deeply atmospheric, this forgotten sci-fi gem remains one of the most striking films from the decade for viewers who enjoy stories built on mystery and introspection. Number 2, Enemy Mine, 1985. Enemy Mine starts with two pilots from opposing sides in a distant conflict who crash land on a harsh, uninhabited planet. One is a human named David. The other belongs to an alien species known as the Drac. Their first instinct is distrust. Both have been raised to believe the other side is dangerous. But survival forces them into a situation neither expected. With the planet's storms and unpredictable wildlife, they soon realize they must rely on each other. At first, their attempts at cooperation are awkward. They misunderstand each other's language, culture, and habits. But gradually, small moments of shared struggle build into something greater. They learn from each other, develop mutual respect, and begin to see past the narratives they were taught. The film's strength comes from focusing on character. The beautiful landscapes, the strange creatures, and the planet's unpredictable conditions all exist to push the two characters closer together. As their connection deepens, the story moves from simple survival to something more meaningful. They begin to protect each other, not because they must, but because they want to. Enemy Mine was ambitious for its time, delivering emotional depth in a genre more widely known for spectacle. Though it struggled at the box office, it has since gained appreciation for its message of understanding between different beings. It remains one of the decade's most heartfelt and forgotten sci-fi epics. Number 1, Android, 1982. Android is one of the 80s sci-fi films that nearly vanished from memory, even though it delivers a surprisingly thoughtful story. It follows Max, an assistant living on a remote space station with his creator, Dr. Daniel. Max isn't a human, but he studies human behavior carefully. He observes, learns, and quietly dreams of becoming something more than a programmed helper. Everything changes when a group of fugitives arrives at the station. Their presence disrupts the quiet routine Max has always known. For the first time, he interacts with people who see him as more than machinery. These encounters spark questions about identity, choice, and emotion that Max never knew he was capable of asking. His creator notices the shift, and the tension between them grows. The atmosphere on the station becomes increasingly uneasy. Flickering lights, empty corridors, and the constant hum of equipment create a sense of isolation that mirrors Max's inner world. As he becomes more aware of himself, he also becomes more aware of the dangers around him. The story builds steadily toward a dramatic turning point that challenges everything he thought he understood. Android may be small in scale, but its ideas are powerful. It remains a quiet, overlooked gem worth rediscovering. And there you have it, 15 sci-fi films from the 80s that slipped through time and almost disappeared. Some were bold, some were strange, and some were simply ahead of their moment. If even one title on this list sparks your curiosity, then the journey was worth it. Tell me which one surprised you, and let us keep exploring forgotten worlds together.